and thanks for watching the top 10 board games based on TV shows or properties. I did want to take a moment and say, I already did 11 through 20, so if you haven't watched that video yet, you might want to watch that one first, or maybe you just want to dive into the top 10. Now, I do want to speak about a couple honorable mentions I did not put on this list, because they weren't directly based on TV properties, but they were about the TV show industry. But there weren't enough to make a list off of that, and I didn't really feel like they were IP related, so I didn't want to include them on this list. The first one is the oldest one, which would be called TV Wars, and this was an Avalon Hill type game with, you were running a TV station, there's a lot of rules and a lot of things going on. And then we kind of transitioned into primetime and networks. And these games were pretty much kickstarted and released at the same time and used different ways of running a TV show, which I think networks became the more popular of the two, while primetime is probably the more gamer of the two games. And these games are great games. I like all three of these games, to be honest. I like the idea of running a TV show, but I wanted this list to be more about the actual shows, you know, the TV properties, you know, like Family Ties and The Sopranos, those type of things that you're doing versus games about the TV industry. So that's why they weren't included on this list, and you won't find them, even though if I were putting them on this list, they would probably make the list, to be honest. So let's go ahead and dive into the top 10 board games based on TV shows. Board game is going to be a children's game. This is going to be Scooby-Doo Fright at the Fun Park. It's a really fun children's game of deduction and finding out who the bad guy is and tracking him down. And it really brings in the Scooby-Doo universe. If you're looking for the best Scooby-Doo universe on the market today, this is it. It's a really fun children's game. So this is something that might be not in your wheelhouse if you don't have kids or you're not willing to play something a little bit lighter. But the deduction in this game and figuring out, like, almost Clue-esque, although it doesn't play like Clue necessarily, but the same thing where you're crossing things off and trying to narrow it down. This Scooby-Doo game is one of the best, and one I actually highly recommend if you have kids. It's a no-brainer, and maybe if you're looking for a light deduction game, adults could play this game also. Is going to be Sons of Anarchy. Now, this is a really cool area control game, and you really feel like you're these bikers that are coming in, and all the gangs have different powers, and you're trying to get different areas of the board to score the most cash, and you'll be doing things like dealing drugs and guns and whatnot, and that's all in this game, and it really comes out to be one of the best area control games. Now, I feel like this game may have turned some people off because Sons of Anarchy wasn't a huge TV show, although it was very popular in some realms. You know, it wasn't something like Lost or The Sopranos just took the world by storm. So the game, you know, might be one of those games people didn't try out because of the IP, although it did bring some people in that were fans of the show, I'm sure. But this game transcends the IP, and I think that's a very solid game. If you haven't tried this out and you like area control games, this is definitely one you want to try out. Number 8 is Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Now, this is a Jasco version. It's a cooperative game that was released a few years ago and does have an expansion that was released. I like this game quite a bit, to be honest. And I'm not really that familiar with the Buffy IP, but even if it didn't have this IP on it, it's still a really solid game. The IP does raise it a little bit. You have all the people from the shows that are in there. You have the Monsters of the Week. I wish the cards had a little bit more artwork. They kind of drew the artwork in this one. I don't mind stills when it comes to this, but they did put the extra effort of having artwork in it, which I know that bothers a lot of people, so that's definitely a plus for it when you're making a list like this. But it's a really fun cooperative game. There's decisions to make. A family could play it together. If you're a fan of Buffy, I mean, when you're playing IP games, I remember being able to play Nintendo back in the day in the 80s. It was like an IP game usually meant it was terrible. That's kind of true, you know. In board gaming, it's a lot of mass market stuff. I mean, we can name a lot of IP games what this list is doing that are really, really good. But, I mean, there's a lot of IP games that are just garbage. So when you get something like this and one of your favorite television shows is Buffy, and you're like, man, we got a decent game. We got a really good cooperative game that really brings the show in, the Monster of the Week, then you have the big bads. I mean, this is a really neat little game. So Buffy fans should be very happy that they have this game, and this will definitely make our list. Number 7 may be a little controversial, but it is Firefly, the board game. Now, the game is not without its flaws. It's a little bit too long for what it is. I'll be very honest with you. But if you want Firefly, and you want everything in Firefly on your table, from getting your crew together, to making money, to misbehaving, to going to the galaxy, to making deals, I mean, all the characters are here, especially all the expansions, the additional ships and stuff. The Reavers are in this. I mean, this is Firefly in a box. I mean, considering Firefly only had a few episodes, maybe half a season. It's a considerable amount of lore that's in this game, and it really brings it to your table. Yeah, it's not perfect. It could be streamlined. I could see a second edition of this coming out where they streamline some things. But gosh darn it, this is a really, really good game if you want Firefly in a box. This will deliver to you in spades. And you might say, well, they're better pickup delivery. Maybe, but they're not Firefly. And some of us care about that. So Firefly would definitely make our list. Number 6 is actually a game that I really, really, really enjoy. And that is Spartacus. Spartacus was a crazy TV show. I mean, out of this world crazy. And if you want to watch something where it's just like all over the place and it's just a time, I don't know if they'll ever make another show like Spartacus again. It was so campy and funny and violent and gory all at the same time, and had really good actors in it, and it was directed well, and it was something that I don't think a lot of people watched. But the Spartacus, the board game. Now, this is a really fun game, and it really does bring this show to the table. And there's some expansions that adds quite a bit. So you have this first part where you're kind of like doing like what you would call the exposition of it. You're buying your slaves, you're buying your people, getting your resources. And then a couple people, usually 2, will be sent to the gladiator pits, and they will fight it out. And it will be bloody, and it will be gory, and it will be awful. The game isn't without its faults. It's really long, especially if you play the full game. Now, the real game is short. And then they kind of make it, okay, if you want the fuller experience, here you are. It's a little bit longer. And I played that before, and I have a really good time with it. Just a lot of ebbs and flows of this game. Now, the gladiator stuff can slow things down a little bit, because all of a sudden you screech to a halt and you play this gladiator, and if you're not involved, you're still involved because you're betting. If I'm betting on Derek, you better bet my bottom booty I'm giving Derek advice. I'm telling him, hey, you better do this. Don't do that. I got money on it. So it's really, really funny. You find yourself just cheering it on. And I've seen some really just decked out versions of this. It's fantastic. Spartacus is a great experience. It's not for everybody. This game is very adult. Oh, yeah. Yeah. This is not something you want to play with your kids. But it's a really fun game. And as a side note, they did retheme this to X-Men. And there are some improvements in that game if you like that. I like this theme. I like this IP. I have both versions. But if you're like, man, I really want to play Spartacus, but I'm not into that and the language and the violence and the slaves, pick up the X-Men version. You'll be fine. And you'll enjoy it. So there is that. Number 5 is Power Rangers. This is the new one by Renegade Games, and this could be a lot higher for me. My son and I have had a blast with this. I'm in. I am all in. Every time they release something, I'm in. This is one of the few times I've contacted a client or a publisher and said, hey, pre-orders, they got Kickstarter. I mean, let me pause. The carrying of this property has been a mess. There are certain ones you kickstart, there's certain ones you pre-order from them, then there was ones that you got at cons. It's like all over the place. That I actually had to contact the publisher and be like, I just want to make sure I'm getting everything. Have I ordered this? Because I got a receipt here. Was this part of the Kickstarter? It's very confusing how it all is. I'm not crazy about that kind of style, where some things are Kickstarter and some things are just pre-orders on their site because it's easy to miss something, especially when you love it. And I love this game. Funny enough, I'm aware of the Power Rangers, of course, and they're at Disney World sometimes. I live in Orlando. It's very close. But Power Rangers isn't something I ever watched or anything. But this game, my son wanted it. I went all in on the Kickstarter, and boy, we had a blast. So much variety. So many different Rangers with different powers, different ways to play, different playing styles with their deck of cards. You get the bad guys that mix things up. You get different boards that are easier and harder. Wow. And I do feel like there's some flaws in it. I don't know if it's true or not. But I kind of feel like when those big bads come out, you got to pound them. If not, you're going to lose. So in that regard, it almost becomes a little scripted to me. I wish there was a little bit more breathing room there. But I understand when the tension is there because there's really no end game other than just kind of surviving and beating them. But Power Rangers is a fantastic game. Even if you don't like the IP, once again, I'm telling you, this is a game you need to check out. If you don't want to go all in, just get a core box or something and have some fun. Play this with your children. This is a great family game. Love this one a lot. Power Rangers, if you're not playing it, it's one you're missing out on. This choice may be a little controversial, but it's Nickelodeon's Splat Attack. This takes a lot of the 90s Nickelodeon shows like Rugrats and Ninja Turtles Hey Arnold and all those, puts them in a lunchroom, and you're going to have a food fight, and you're going to fight the other players and move around. Everybody has different powers. Very unique game. Very, very cool. I like this one a lot. There's some rules. I have my kids there, and I got to keep everything straight. But boys, this is really fun. And if you ever want to have a food fight, of course we all did in school, right? We saw them on our TV shows. We're like, yeah, I want a food fight. This is your opportunity to do it with Nickelodeon characters, and there's a ton of them. If you watch 90s Nick, this is for you. I mean, pretty much every show is in this. There may be some expansions. You have the big dinosaur that you can add. So Splat Attack is a really fun, just everything goes fighting game with the Nickelodeon characters. And that's our favorite at this spot. Number 3 is one of my favorite games of all time, Battlestar Galactica. What a fantastic show that was. It had its rough patches, as most shows do, but the board game really brings that show to life. I'm super surprised that this game hasn't been re-released or even streamlined a little bit, which is a different IP, but it's really hard because the IP is born into it. You can definitely enjoy this game because it's a great game whether the IP is on it or not, but if you like the show, you're going to love the game. And they're very melded together, although you can enjoy it without knowing. And probably, I think I played with people who didn't know, and it's still a fun thing. It's got ship battles, and it's got people running around. It's got the political intrigue. It's got that traitor mechanism, and it works really well. One of the big downsides is probably how long it takes to play. And if it's a little bit shorter, I think it'd be higher on this list, perhaps. But Battlestar Galactica is a great game if you have anywhere from like 5 to 8 of your friends over. It can be a fantastic game to play. And if people can get over the nerd factor or they don't like the IP, they're going to love this game. Number 2 is one of my favorite board games, if not my favorite 2-player board game of all time, and that is Star Trek Fleet Captains. This is a far cry from 5-Year Mission. This is Star Trek in a box. It's everything you ever wanted in a Star Trek game, with subpar components, of course. If you have different decks you can play, you got different ships you can fly, you got different missions you can go on, different strategic elements into it. This is a fantastic game. There's a lot in the box, I'll be honest, and there are some rules. This isn't, uber heavy rules. Don't let me give you the wrong impression. But there's a little bit going on here, and it's a very fun experience. If you're a Star Trek fan at all, and you haven't played Fleet Captains, stop everything you're doing, get this game and play it. It's worth it. It's that good. Are you going to like it without Star Trek? Yeah, maybe. I think some people will. It bleeds a lot of Star Trek. Let me put you there. But I'm not the biggest Trekkie in the world, to be honest. I'm just not. And I do like this quite a bit. So Star Trek Fleet Captains is not only a fantastic use of the IP, but a fantastic game. The number 1 game of top 10 TV shows should be no surprise to you if you've ever watched my channel at all. It's Walking Dead No Sanctuary. Now, this game got a lot of heat over some of the component issues and some of the miniatures. I don't have a problem with that. I think ours work really great. I really love this game. But not only is it a very strong game, it brings The Walking Dead to life. Because Walking Dead is not just about killing as many walkers or zombies as possible. It's also about the people in it. And the leadership mechanic and the different decks that you're using. Everybody works a little bit better. I believe it's one of the Saller Brothers first games using the multiple decks. If it's not the first, then forgive me. But it was a great use of the property. And that leadership, how you can do whatever you want, but if you go against the leader, it just costs you a little bit more. It's such a great mechanism to have, because that's what the game and the show is a lot about. It's about that leader taking over. Do you follow them? Do you not? Are they evil? Are they good? And it brings all that in. Each of the characters plays a little bit differently. There's plenty of content for this game. You can get expansions out the wazoo if you want it. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. You can drop as much money on this as you want. And here's the kicker. People were so upset over the miniatures that the game, you can get it for a song. Get this game. It's worth it. This is such a great game. Even if you don't like Walking Dead, maybe it goes down a little bit. But if you like Walking Dead or ever liked Walking Dead, it takes you through the first season, takes you through the second season, takes you through the third season. You're going to find Herschel. It's very interesting of a game and one I like quite a bit. Well, thanks for watching the top 20 board games based on a TV show or a TV show property. I really appreciate you sticking with me. If you've been here for all 20 games or just the 10, it means a lot that people watch this, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for being here. I know some of you are going to argue with me and not think so. If you have any ideas of good IP games I didn't include on the list, please comment below, because I would love to hear more about IP games and which ones, specifically based on a TV show. No comic books, no nothing else. TV shows only here. And I'd love to see what you have to say, and what you like that was out there. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.